The dark silence of space stretched endlessly, broken only by the cold glow of distant stars. A vast alien fleet drifted near the edge of a forgotten system, their ships sharp and metallic, like predators waiting for the right moment to strike. In the center, the High Council of the Dominion gathered, their voices sharp, their eyes burning with pride and arrogance. They had conquered hundreds of species, destroyed countless civilizations, and carried the weight of an empire across the galaxy. Yet tonight they spoke of a strange and fragile race. That race was called human. The council chamber echoed with disbelief. How could such a weak and unremarkable species hold their attention? Their bodies were soft, their ships were small, their technology was centuries behind. To the Dominion, humans were nothing more than a fragile vessel, a mistake of evolution floating through space. And yet, something was wrong. Something about humans made the great empire uneasy. Reports from the frontier had shaken even the most powerful commanders. Entire scout groups had gone silent after contact with a single human ship. Destroyer fleets meant to crush resistance in hours were held back for days, sometimes weeks, by human defenses. No other species had done this. No other enemy had caused such confusion. The council argued in thunderous voices. One admiral slammed his clawed hand against the table. "They are weak. They are only one vessel against us. Why waste time discussing them?" But another voice, quieter and colder, cut through the noise. "Then explain this. Why do they keep surviving? Why do they resist when they should have fallen long ago?" The room fell silent. For the first time, the mighty Dominion tasted something they had not known in generations. Doubt. Across the void, a lonely human vessel drifted, its engines glowing faintly in the dark. From a distance it looked fragile, almost broken, a single spark against the ocean of alien firepower. Yet inside, the crew stood ready. They did not fear the endless fleets watching them. They had seen death before. They had lived with war, hunger, and despair. To them, survival was not just instinct, it was identity. The aliens watched from their flagship, scanning the lone vessel. "One ship," whispered a commander. "One fragile ship. Why does it not flee? Why does it not bow?" The answer never came. Instead, the human vessel powered its weapons, turning slowly to face the massive fleet. The crew knew they had no chance. The numbers were impossible. But surrender was never an option. Humans had never been born to kneel. The Dominion waited for an easy kill. They expected fear. They expected begging. But what they saw was something else, something they had not seen in any other species. A fire, a refusal, a will that could not be broken. Then it began. The single vessel moved like no alien had ever seen. It twisted, turned, adapted to enemy fire, like it had studied their every move. Where other species panicked, humans calculated. Where others begged for mercy, humans struck back with reckless courage. The Council's fleet commander stared in disbelief. Impossible. No one fights like this. No one sacrifices like this. One by one, alien ships were forced to adjust, to regroup, to chase a single fragile vessel that should have been destroyed in minutes. Hours passed. The impossible battle dragged on. And in that time, the Dominion began to understand something terrible. Humans were not strong because of their bodies. They were not powerful because of their ships. They were strong because they refused to break, and that refusal was more dangerous than any weapon. The High Council listened as reports came in. Their eyes narrowed, their pride faltered. Something inside them began to whisper a truth they did not want to hear. If a single human vessel could cause this much fear, what would happen if more arrived? The story of humans spread across the alien empire like wildfire. Soldiers whispered about them in the dark. Commanders studied their strange tactics. And leaders who had once mocked humanity now spoke their name with caution. "Why?" asked one elder, his voice heavy with unease. "Why are the humans just one vessel against us? Yet we feel as if we are the ones surrounded." The silence that followed was heavier than any weapon. In the cold dark of space, the human ship drifted on, scarred and battered but alive. Its crew stood together, tired but unbroken. They were not gods, not monsters, not chosen. They were simply human, and that was enough to make an empire afraid. The hook had been set. The question had been planted. The galaxy now waited for an answer. The alien Dominion did not forgive insults. When news spread that one human vessel had delayed an entire fleet, the Council was furious. To them, it was not a victory for humans. It was a humiliation for the Empire. The order was clear: send a larger force, crush the humans, erase their name from the stars, and so, the first encounter began, from the void. 20 Dominion warships broke through the darkness, their hulls sharp as blades, their engines burning like suns. They moved with perfect formation, a wall of fire and steel, the kind of power that had ended civilizations in a single day. To them, one human ship was nothing more than an insect, but the insect refused to run. The human vessel floated near a pale planet, its shields flickering, its weapons weak compared to the approaching storm. Inside, the crew felt the weight of the impossible. Some were silent, some whispered prayers, but not one of them suggested surrender. Humans had always lived with impossible odds. Wars on their own world, disasters that should have broken them, enemies that seemed unstoppable. And yet somehow they always endured. Enemy ships entering range, the human captain said, his voice steady, almost calm. His crew turned to their stations. Their hands shook, but their eyes were sharp. The aliens closed in. Their commanders laughed over the comms. One fragile vessel. This will be quick. They expected fear. They expected the humans to hide behind shields until the end. Instead, the human ship moved. It didn't charge. It didn't retreat. It danced. The vessel weaved through the black like it had been born for the battlefield. It used the planet's gravity to slingshot itself around, forcing the larger alien ships to break formation. The first volley of enemy fire missed completely, scattering across empty space. The Dominion fleet commander's eyes narrowed. Adjust targeting. Herd them in. But the humans refused to be herded. Their ship shifted speed in unpredictable bursts, their weapons firing at precise moments, not for destruction but for disruption. They targeted engines, sensors, weak points. Every shot was chosen with care. The aliens expected chaos, but what they found was strategy. Minutes turned into an hour. What should have been a slaughter became a struggle. Dominion ships began colliding with each other, frustrated by the small vessel that refused to die. Inside the human ship, alarms screamed. Hull plating burned, oxygen leaked, systems failed. Still, the crew pressed on. Every face was lit by red warning lights, every breath carried the weight of death. But no one spoke of retreat. "Captain," one officer whispered, "we can't hold this forever." The captain's eyes stayed fixed on the stars. "Then we don't hold. We fight." The aliens could not understand it. Other species begged for mercy at this point. They surrendered. They gave away their worlds. But these humans, they fought as if losing didn't matter. They fought as if death was simply part of the plan. The Dominion fleet commander growled. "They are only one vessel. Why does it feel like we are fighting an entire army?" "Because the humans fought like an army. Every crew member moved as one. Every decision, every sacrifice was made without hesitation. Where other species cracked under pressure, humans grew sharper. They adapted faster than the Dominion's perfect machines. The turning point came suddenly. The human vessel dove close to the planet, skimming its atmosphere. Alien ships pursued, but their larger frames struggled against the pull of gravity. The humans used the chaos to strike. One alien cruiser lost control, crashing into another. A chain of explosions rippled across the sky, and for the first time the Dominion tasted the bitter edge of loss. The human crew cheered, but only for a second. Their own ship was breaking apart. Fire spread through the halls, metal groaned, but still they pressed forward. They had no illusions of survival, but they understood something greater. Every second they delayed the Dominion meant another human world could prepare. Another human fleet could rise. The Dominion commander raged. "Enough, finish them!" Every gun turned on the lone vessel. Beams of energy lit the void, tearing the human ship apart. The crew stood at their posts until the very end, eyes forward, hearts steady. The final explosion bloomed like a small sun, and silence returned to space. The aliens cheered. The insect had been crushed. The Dominion had proven its power again, or so they thought. Because hours later, reports came from other sectors. Another human vessel had appeared. Then another. And another. Each fought with the same reckless courage, the same strange defiance. Each one delayed the Empire longer than expected. The Dominion began to realize a truth they did not want to face. Humans were not just one vessel. Every human ship, every human soldier carried the same fire, the same spirit. Destroying one did not end the fight. It only made the fight spread. The first encounter was supposed to be a warning to humanity. Instead, it became a warning to the Dominion. The Empire had found an enemy unlike any other. An enemy too fragile to win, yet too stubborn to lose. An enemy that could turn every defeat into fuel for the next battle. And for the first time, the Empire wondered, if this is what one vessel can do, what will happen when humanity fights as one? The Dominion had destroyed the human vessel. The battlefield near the pale planet burned with drifting wreckage, twisted metal glowing red in the cold dark. To the alien commanders, it should have been over. A fragile species had faced the Empire, and now it had been erased. But the victory felt hollow, because only hours later, another human ship appeared in a different sector. Then another, and another. Each fought with the same stubborn courage, each refused to break, and each delayed the Dominion far longer than logic allowed. For every ship destroyed, more seemed to rise. It was as if humanity itself was endless. The High Council demanded answers. Why do they not fall? Why do they not surrender like the others? To find the truth, the Dominion began to study humanity. Armies of spies and historians searched through captured broadcasts, ancient records, and fragments of human culture. What they discovered disturbed them more than any weapon. Humans had been at war long before they touched the stars. Their history was not one of peace, but of struggle. Kingdoms had risen and fallen. Empires had clashed for centuries. They had fought against nature, against famine, against plagues, and against each other. By all logic, they should have destroyed themselves. And yet, somehow, they had survived every trial. The aliens watched old human footage. Soldiers fighting in muddy trenches. Explorers crossing frozen mountains, families rebuilding cities after fire and ruin. They saw people who were fragile in body but unbreakable in spirit. They are not strong, whispered one alien scholar. They are stubborn. That stubbornness was what made humans different. Most species, when faced with certain defeat, accepted it. They bent the knee or they vanished. But humans did not understand the meaning of surrender. When cornered, they fought. When broken, they rebuilt. When crushed, they rose again. The Dominion's military leaders grew restless. They fight like they do not fear death. How can we destroy such an enemy? But the scholars shook their heads. No, Commander. You misunderstand. It is not that they do not fear death. It is that they have lived with death for so long that they no longer bow to it. This truth became clear in every battle. Human ships, even when outnumbered, fought with reckless bravery. Crews sacrificed themselves to protect others. Soldiers charged into hopeless fights not to win, but to buy time for their people to escape. Every defeat carried within it the seed of survival. The Dominion began to see a pattern. Humans were not bound by logic. Where machines calculated survival odds, humans acted on something deeper. Hope, a force that could not be measured yet could change the outcome of entire wars. One alien commander told his peers, "Hope is not a weapon. It is an illusion." But another replied, "Then why does it bleed us more than any blade?" The more the Dominion studied, the more the mystery deepened. Why did a fragile species with weak ships and fragile bodies hold against the greatest empire in the galaxy? Why did they keep rising even when crushed? The answer came from a simple truth. Humans fought not for empire, not for wealth, not for glory. They fought for each other, for family, for children, for tomorrow. That made them dangerous because no empire could strip that away. A captured human officer, broken and bloodied, was once asked by his alien captors, "Why fight? Why resist when you know you cannot win?" The human only smiled, his voice cracked but steady. "Because if I fall, someone else will rise. We are never alone." Those words spread like poison through the Dominion. Soldiers whispered them in fear. Leaders heard them in their dreams. Humanity's strength was not in ships or weapons. It was in unity, in their refusal to fight as individuals. Every human was part of something larger, and that was the true mystery of survival. The Dominion began to feel unease. If humans survived this way in the past, if they had turned every tragedy into fuel for the future, then what would happen now, with stars at their fingertips, with worlds to protect, with a reason to fight greater than ever before? What would stop them from rising higher? The council gathered once more. The chamber was silent. No one dared laugh at humanity anymore. "They are not one vessel," said the eldest among them. His voice was heavy, as if admitting a curse. "They are millions, and yet they move as if they are one." The mystery was no longer a question of how. The Dominion now feared the answer to something far greater. How long before humanity turns from survival to victory? In the darkness of space, another human fleet formed, small but determined, their ships scarred but alive. Every soldier knew they were fragile, outnumbered, and hunted. But every heart carried the same fire. For the Dominion, this fire was a riddle they could not solve. For humanity, it was simply who they were. The mystery of survival had only begun. The Dominion searched for answers. After battle upon battle, after burning wrecks and shattered fleets, the Empire could no longer deny the truth. Humans were not like the others. Something hidden kept them alive, something stronger than weapons, stronger than numbers. The High Council ordered their finest minds to uncover this mystery. Scientists probed captured human tech. Spies whispered in the shadows, stealing fragments of language and history. Commanders replayed recordings of human battles over and over, searching for the pattern. At first, they expected to find a device. A secret engine, a hidden shield, some lost technology that made humans fight beyond their limits. But no machine was discovered. No hidden weapon appeared. The human ships were simple, their weapons crude compared to Dominion warcraft. And yet the humans kept winning time. Frustration spread through the council. "It cannot be nothing," one general growled. "No one fights like this without a weapon." But a scholar, older than the rest, spoke quietly. "Perhaps their weapon is not a thing we can touch." The council sneered, but the old one continued. "Perhaps their weapon is themselves." At first the idea sounded foolish, but then reports began to support it. In every encounter, human crews worked as if bound together by something invisible. They covered for each other without command. They adapted as one mind, as if the pain of one was the pain of all. Even when scattered, even when outnumbered, they fought with unity that no Dominion army could match. Alien soldiers noticed it too. Captured humans, when separated, refused to betray their own. When starved, they shared food. When broken, they comforted one another. Where other species cracked, humans stood together. One commander, who had interrogated hundreds of enemies, admitted, "I have never seen such fire. When one falls, the others do not despair. They grow stronger. It is as if their strength multiplies in suffering." That was when the truth began to take form. Humans were not one vessel because of weakness. They were one vessel because they carried each other forward. Their unity was the hidden weapon, sharper than blades, harder than steel. The Dominion did not understand this. Their empire was built on fear, on obedience, on power flowing downward from the strong to the weak. Unity was forced, not chosen, but humans chose it freely. Their bonds were not chains. They were bridges, and that made them unstoppable. The scholars of the Dominion grew restless. "If unity is their strength," one asked, "then how do we break it?" But there was no clear answer. Humans had faced division for centuries, yet somehow they always found a way back to each other. Wars on their homeworld should have destroyed them. Instead, they had risen stronger. Disasters should have ended them. Instead, they rebuilt. It seemed the more they were broken, the more they became whole. The Dominion tried to spread lies among captured humans. They whispered promises of safety, freedom, power, if only the humans would betray their kind. But every attempt failed. The prisoners laughed in the faces of their captors, even in chains. One human prisoner, when offered his life in exchange for betrayal, spat blood and whispered, "We don't survive alone. We survive together. That's something you'll never understand." Those words became a ghost in the halls of the Dominion. The Empire realized too late that the true weapon of humanity was not in their hands, but in their hearts. The turning point came during a great battle near a star system the humans called Orion's Gate. A small fleet of human ships stood against a Dominion armada. The numbers were hopeless. Every calculation predicted total annihilation in minutes, but the humans did not fight alone. Across distant channels, voices from other sectors spoke. They sent warnings, advice, encouragement. They promised reinforcements, even if those reinforcements would arrive too late. Every human ship fought as if millions of voices stood with them, and in truth they did. When one vessel was destroyed, the others fought harder. When a captain fell, another stepped forward without hesitation. The humans filled each gap with willpower alone, and the battle stretched longer than anyone thought possible. The Dominion commanders, watching the chaos, finally understood. The humans' greatest weapon was not steel, not fire, not numbers. It was unity. It was the ability to fight as one vessel, no matter how far apart they were, no matter how broken they became. The alien empire trembled at this realization. Because no empire, no matter how powerful, could truly destroy an enemy that refused to fight alone. As the last human ship limped away from Orion's gate, battered but alive, the Council of the Dominion sat in silence. "We thought they were fragile," one whispered. "We thought they were weak," another admitted. The eldest finally spoke, his voice heavy with fear. "No, they are not one vessel against us. They are all vessels, and they carry each other forward. That is their weapon. That is why we cannot crush them." In the darkness of the galaxy, the truth echoed like a warning. Humanity's hidden weapon had been revealed, and the Dominion now knew. It was a weapon that could never be stolen, never be copied, never be destroyed. The Dominion believed they understood humans now. Unity was their hidden weapon, the fire that kept them alive. But the Empire still believed that fire could be contained. After all, fire only burns until it is smothered. The Dominion was wrong. The next battles proved it. Every time the Empire struck, the humans refused to fall. Every time the Empire thought the war was finished, humanity rose again. Their fleets were small, their technology outdated, but their will was endless. The Dominion grew impatient. "Crush them with everything," one admiral ordered. "End this rebellion before it spreads." And so they unleashed their strongest armada, hundreds of warships, engines blazing, weapons primed. The target was a cluster of human colonies near the rim of the galaxy. The aliens expected an easy victory. They expected to wipe away not just ships but families, children, entire worlds. But this time the humans did not wait to be hunted. They came prepared. From the void, human ships emerged, not one or two but dozens, scarred, battered, built from the wreckage of old battles, yet burning with new resolve. It was no longer just survival. It was resistance. The first clash was brutal. Dominion warships unleashed their fury, tearing through the human line. Explosions lit the black like falling stars. Entire crews were lost in seconds. But something had changed. The humans did not scatter. They did not run. They fought as one, each ship covered the next. Each sacrifice bought time for another. Small vessels threw themselves into the path of enemy fire to shield transports filled with civilians. Captains gave their lives so that their fleets could live another hour. The battle became not just defense but defiance. The Dominion commanders sneered at first. They delayed the inevitable. But hours passed and the inevitable never came. Every Dominion weapon destroyed one ship, but two more pressed forward. Every victory felt hollow, because the humans fought harder with each loss. Their unity turned despair into strength, and for the first time, the Empire realized that fire cannot always be smothered. Sometimes fire spreads. The humans began to change their tactics. They no longer fought only to survive. They fought to win ground. They struck at Dominion supply lines. They targeted communication hubs. They lured enemy ships into traps made from asteroids and gravity wells. It was the beginning of something the Empire had never faced before: human strategy. One Dominion officer watched in disbelief as a human fleet, outnumbered 3-1, managed to cut off an entire wing of their armada and destroy it piece by piece. "They should not have this knowledge," he muttered. "They learn too quickly. They adapt too fast." Indeed, that was the turning point. Humans did not fight like machines. They did not repeat the same tactics. Every defeat became a lesson. Every loss became fuel for the next battle. Where the Dominion fought with tradition and order, humans fought with creativity and chaos. And chaos was something the Empire could not control. The Council of the Dominion felt the change. What began as whispers of annoyance grew into storms of fear. Reports came from across the galaxy. Dominion fleets slowed, supply convoys lost, colonies under constant attack. It was no longer a war of extermination. It was becoming a war of survival for the Empire. One scholar, once mocked for warning about humanity, now stood before the council. His voice shook, but not from fear, from certainty. "You see now, we thought they were prey, but prey that fights together becomes predator." The words hung in the chamber like a curse. The turning point was not marked by a single battle. It was marked by something greater. Humanity no longer fought just to live another day. They fought to make the Dominion bleed. On a cold, distant colony world, a group of human soldiers stood against an advancing army. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded. Yet their leader raised his weapon and shouted words that echoed across every human heart. "We fight not because we can win today, but because tomorrow depends on us." The soldiers roared in answer, and they charged into the impossible. Many fell, but their sacrifice delayed the Dominion long enough for civilians to escape. And when news of their stand reached other human worlds, it did not break spirits. It ignited them. The Dominion began to notice a new danger. Fear no longer worked on humans. Every act of destruction only made them stronger. Every world lost only fueled their determination. The Empire realized it had awakened something it could not put back to sleep. And for the first time in centuries, the Dominion knew the taste of doubt, not about human survival, but about its own. The turning point had arrived. Humanity, once seen as fragile, had shifted from prey to hunter. The fire of survival had become the fire of resistance, and deep in the silence of space, as fleets prepared for the next war, one question haunted every Dominion commander. If this is what humanity can do while standing on the defensive, what will happen when they decide to attack? The Dominion had never known fear. For centuries they had ruled the galaxy with iron claws and cold fire. Empires fell before them. Civilizations were erased. To resist the Dominion was to vanish into dust. But now, for the first time, cracks appeared in their empire, not from human weapons but from human legend. Every battle report was the same. Small human fleets holding off impossible odds, fragile ships surviving against entire armadas, colonies refusing to kneel even when burned to ashes. The Dominion commanders explained it as luck, as coincidence, as meaningless delay. But their soldiers whispered another word: humanity. Fear began as a shadow in the barracks. Soldiers told stories in hushed voices of human crews who fought even when their ships were falling apart, of prisoners who died laughing in the face of their captors, of colonies that rose again even after destruction. The stories spread faster than orders, faster than truth, faster than lies. One soldier told another, "They fight like ghosts. Kill one and 10 more appear." Another whispered, "They are weak in body but strong in spirit, stronger than us." Soon fear reached the commanders. Fleets grew slower to respond. Captains hesitated before engaging. Some even lied in their reports, claiming victory while hiding their losses, too ashamed to admit that fragile humans had resisted them. The High Council raged at this weakness. They demanded obedience. They ordered punishment. They swore that fear itself was treason. But no punishment could kill the whisper spreading through the Empire. Humans cannot be broken. And then came the worst part. The Dominion's own unity began to fracture. Governors argued with generals. Generals argued with admirals. Some demanded a stronger hand, complete extermination. Others feared such attempts would only waste resources and make humans stronger. Every leader believed they knew the answer, yet none could stop the slow rise of doubt. One counselor slammed his fist against the great table. "We are the Dominion. We do not fear insects." But another, quieter voice answered, "If they are insects, why do they make us tremble?" The silence that followed was more terrifying than any shout. Meanwhile, in the outer worlds of the Dominion, rebellions began to stir. Other species who had lived under Dominion chains for centuries now whispered the name of humanity with hope. If fragile humans could resist the Empire, then maybe they could too. One rebellion carved human symbols into the walls of their prisons, a single vessel facing a storm, yet still standing. To them it was not weakness, it was defiance. The Dominion now fought 2 wars, one against humanity and one against fear itself. The greatest blow came when a Dominion fleet, tasked with destroying a small human colony, refused to engage. The commander, a veteran of countless wars, looked upon the colony and turned his ships away. His soldiers reported later. His hand shook. He said humans cannot be killed, only delayed. He would not order the attack. The council executed him for cowardice. But his story spread across the Empire. Cowardice was contagious. Fear became cracks. Cracks became fractures, and fractures threatened to break the Dominion apart. The Empire began to wonder. Had they created their own downfall by underestimating humans? By mocking them? By declaring them nothing more than a vessel? Because now that vessel carried fire across the galaxy. One scholar, watching from the shadows of the council chamber, spoke words that chilled every listener. "We thought they were fighting for survival, but perhaps they are fighting for something greater. Perhaps they fight to change the galaxy itself." The council scoffed, but none truly denied it. In the darkness of the Empire, rumors grew. Some whispered that humans could not die. Some claimed that even in death their spirit lived on in others. Some said humans were not fighting alone, that even the galaxy itself favored them. Logic said it was nonsense. Fear said otherwise. And fear was winning. On a distant colony world, Dominion troops prepared to crush a human outpost. But when they charged, they found not soldiers but civilians standing in their path. Farmers, children, elders, none carried advanced weapons, yet none stepped aside. Their defiance alone froze the soldiers where they stood. Because in that moment the Dominion saw the truth. Humanity's power was not only in their fleets. It was in their will. Even unarmed, even fragile, they would never bow. The soldiers turned back that day, not because they were defeated, but because they could not bring themselves to fight an enemy that refused to break. The Empire panicked. For centuries they had ruled through fear. But now it was fear that ruled them, and at the heart of that fear stood a question they could not answer. If humans inspire such terror with only survival, what will happen when they decide to strike back with everything they have? The Dominion was breaking. The galaxy had watched the cracks spread, soldiers afraid to fight, governors doubting orders, whispers of rebellion rising on every world. But even with all this chaos, the Council of the Dominion told themselves one last lie. We are still stronger than the humans. They gathered in their grand chamber, light from 1,000 stars shining down through crystal walls. Pride filled their voices, but fear filled their hearts. Reports of human victories lay across the table like scars. Every page told the same story. Fragile ships holding the line, hopeless battles stretched into days, humans surviving where no one should. One counselor spoke with trembling words. They are only one vessel, and yet our fleets cannot silence them. What happens when they gather all their vessels together? The chamber fell quiet. None wanted to imagine that future. But far away in the darkness of space, that future was already arriving. From the rim of the galaxy, a human fleet emerged. Not a single ship this time. Not a lonely vessel against the storm. Dozens of ships, scarred and battered but alive, burned their engines toward Dominion territory. Behind them, more fleets prepared. Small worlds that had once begged for safety now sent soldiers and ships of their own. Colonies that had been scattered now moved as one. For the first time, humanity was not just defending. They were advancing. The Dominion scrambled to prepare. Armadas gathered at the border, their commanders shouting orders with false confidence. But in their eyes, doubt grew like a shadow. They remembered every defeat, every strange victory the humans had carved from the impossible. And then the moment came. Near the edge of Dominion space, the two forces met. Alien warships formed lines as perfect as blades, ready to crush any who opposed them. But the humans did not form lines. They moved like fire, flowing, adapting, weaving through the dark as if the void itself was their ally. The battle roared. Dominion weapons tore through the void. Human ships shattered under the storm. But every time one fell, another filled its place. Every sacrifice fed the will of the fleet. Every death carried meaning. The Dominion fought for power. The humans fought for each other. And slowly, impossibly, the humans began to push forward. From the command deck of the Dominion flagship, the fleet commander watched in disbelief. His hands shook, his voice faltered. It cannot be. They should not. They cannot win. But they were winning, not because they were stronger, not because they had better weapons, but because they were united. Every ship, every soldier, every voice fought as one vessel, carrying the spirit of humanity across the stars. The Dominion Council watched the battle unfold from afar. Pride drained from their faces. For centuries they had believed fear was the strongest weapon. But now they saw something greater: unity, hope, willpower. And they realized the final revelation. Humans had never been one fragile vessel. Humans were all vessels carrying the same fire, the same spirit, across every world, across every ship, across every life. Destroy one and the others burned brighter. Break one and the rest rose stronger. This was their secret. This was their power. one counselor whispered in horror. "We thought they were weak, but they are endless, they are inevitable." The word spread like poison. Inevitable. For the Dominion, the war was no longer about victory. It was about survival. The human fleet pressed deeper, closer to the heart of the Empire. Rumors spread that they would not stop until the Dominion itself was broken. Other species rose in rebellion, emboldened by human defiance. The galaxy began to shift, and the Dominion could not hold it back. At last, the High Council asked the question they had avoided for so long. What will we do when all of humanity arrives at our gates? No one had an answer, because the answer was not about what the Dominion could do. The answer was about what humanity would do, and the truth was clear: humanity would not stop. Not until the Empire fell. In the cold silence of space, the final battle was still to come. But the outcome was already written, not in fire, not in steel, but in the hearts of those who refused to break. The humans were not a single vessel. They were one people, one fire, one destiny. And as their fleet advanced, as the stars burned with the light of their defiance, the Dominion knew fear greater than death itself. Because if one fragile vessel had once been enough to shake the Empire, what would happen when the whole of humanity arrived?